Everybody knows the children's Bible. Bright colors, smiling prophets, animals marching 2 by 2. A nice bedtime story, all cleaned up for you. The actual text is something else entirely. Murder, deception, incest, holy war, and arguments with the Almighty that would get you thrown out of any church today. These aren't fairy tales. They're records of people doing desperate, brilliant, terrible things in the name of survival and faith. Today, you're going to hear 17 stories the Sunday school version conveniently left out. Lock your door. This is the Bible they didn't want you to think too hard about. Number 1, the Garden of Eden. Everyone remembers the serpent, the apple, and the fall. What most people skip is that the text never calls the serpent Satan. Not once. It just says he was clever. The tree wasn't about fruit. It was about knowing good and evil, which is code for wisdom, judgment, and the power to rule. God himself says that eating from it would make humans like us, plural. The punishment wasn't just exile, it was mortality. Before the fruit, death wasn't part of the deal. One conversation with a snake, and suddenly humans got smart enough to be dangerous and fragile enough to die. That trade still echoes today. Number 2, Noah and the flood. You know the animals, you know the rainbow. What you probably don't know is what happened right after the water dried up. Noah planted a vineyard, made wine, and got so drunk he passed out naked in his tent. His son Ham walked in and saw him. For that, Noah cursed not Ham, but Ham's son Canaan, condemning an entire lineage over a glance. Scholars still argue what really happened in that tent. The text is vague on purpose, but the aftermath was brutal. One mistake, one moment, and generations paid the price. Number 3, Abraham and Isaac. This one gets taught as a faith lesson. God told Abraham to sacrifice his only son, and Abraham obeyed until an angel stopped him at the last second. What rarely gets mentioned is the silence. Isaac never speaks again in the story after that day on the mountain. Neither does Sarah, his mother. Some traditions say she died from the shock of hearing what almost happened. Abraham passed the test. But at what cost to everyone around him? Number 4, the Tower of Babel. The usual version says humans got arrogant, built a tower to reach heaven, and God punished them by scrambling their languages. But read the text again. The people weren't attacking God. They were trying to stay together, to make a name for themselves so they wouldn't be scattered. And God's response? He says if they can do this, nothing they plan will be impossible for them. So he scattered them anyway. It's not a story about pride. It's a story about power and who gets to have it. Number 5, Lot's daughters. After Sodom and Gomorrah burned, Lot and his 2 daughters hid in a cave, believing they were the last people on earth. The daughters decided the family line had to continue. So they got their father drunk, 2 nights in a row, and both became pregnant by him. The text doesn't condemn them. It simply records what happened and names the nations that came from those children. Survival logic in a world that had just ended. No judgment, just the facts. Number 6, Jacob the con artist. Isaac was old and blind. He wanted to bless his firstborn, Esau. But Jacob, the younger twin, dressed in goat skins to feel hairy like his brother, brought fake food and stole the blessing meant for someone else. His mother helped him do it, and instead of punishment, Jacob became the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. The trickster won. The honest brother lost everything. That's the actual story. Number 7, Joseph's revenge. Everyone knows Joseph forgave his brothers after they sold him into slavery. But look closer at what he did first. He accused them of being spies. He threw them in prison. He planted evidence to frame them for theft. He made them grovel and weep before revealing who he was. And then, during the famine, he used his power to buy up all the land in Egypt for Pharaoh, turning free people into servants. Forgiveness came, but so did control. Number 8, Moses the fugitive. Before the burning bush, before the plagues, Moses killed a man. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, looked both ways to make sure no one was watching, and struck him dead. Then he buried the body in the sand. When word got out, he ran. For 40 years, the future liberator of Israel lived as a fugitive in the desert, tending sheep and hiding from justice. That's where God found him. Number 9. Samson's final act. The strongman's story ends in a temple full of Philistines. Blinded, chained, and mocked, he asked God for strength one last time. Then he pushed the pillars apart, bringing the roof down on 3,000 enemies and himself. The text says he killed more people in his death than in his entire life. It was not a heroic last stand. It was a suicide mission designed for maximum destruction. The judges celebrated him for it. Number 10. David and Bathsheba. The man after God's own heart saw a woman bathing on a rooftop, sent for her, and slept with her while her husband was at war. When she got pregnant, David tried to cover it up. He called her husband home, hoping he would sleep with his wife and think the baby was his. It didn't work. So David sent him back to the front lines with sealed orders that guaranteed his death. Murder by memo. Number 11. Solomon's judgment. 2 women claimed the same baby. Solomon offered to cut the child in half and split it between them. One woman agreed. The other begged him to give the baby to her rival instead. Solomon handed the child to the one who would rather lose than see it die. Wisdom, yes, but also a willingness to threaten infanticide to get to the truth. That edge made him legendary. Number 12. Elijah on Mount Carmel. The prophet challenged 450 priests of Baal to a contest. Each side would build an altar and call on their god to send fire. Baal's priests danced, shouted, and cut themselves for hours. Nothing happened. Elijah mocked them, soaked his altar in water 3 times, and called on God. Fire fell and consumed everything. Then Elijah ordered the crowd to seize the priests and had every single one of them executed by the river. 450 dead in one afternoon. Number 13. Jonah's tantrum. You remember the whale. You probably don't remember what happened after. God sent Jonah to warn Nineveh that destruction was coming. The city repented. God spared them. And Jonah was furious. He wanted them dead. He sat outside the city sulking and told God he would rather die than watch his enemies be forgiven. The book ends with God asking Jonah a question he never answers. Number 14. Job's lawsuit. Job lost everything. His children, his wealth, his health. His friends told him he must have sinned. Job refused to accept that. Instead, he demanded a legal hearing with God. He wanted to present his case, cross-examine the Almighty, and get a verdict. God eventually showed up, not to explain, but to ask Job a series of unanswerable questions about the universe. Job backed down, but he never got an apology. The bet between God and Satan that started his suffering was never mentioned to him. Number 15. Daniel in the lion's den. Daniel wasn't thrown in for his faith. He was thrown in because his rivals wrote a law specifically designed to trap him. He survived the night, and in the morning, those same rivals and their entire families were fed to the lions instead. The story isn't about gentle deliverance. It's about political survival and brutal payback in a foreign court. Number 16. Esther's reversal. The king's advisor Haman planned to exterminate every Jew in the empire. Queen Esther revealed her identity and exposed the plot. Haman was hanged on the gallows he built for her cousin. But the story doesn't end there. The Jews were authorized to defend themselves and killed over 75,000 of their enemies in a single coordinated strike. Purim celebrates that victory to this day. Number 17. Revelation's hidden code. The final book of the Bible reads like a fever dream. Beasts, dragons, numbers, thrones. But scholars now believe much of it was coded political resistance against Rome. The beast, the number 666, the Scarlet Woman, all pointed to the empire and its emperors. It wasn't a prediction of the distant future. It was a survival manual for people living under persecution, written so that only insiders would understand. And that's the thread running through all of it. These stories never ended. They just moved. The cons, the cover-ups, the power plays, the desperate faith. They're still here, hiding in courtrooms, boardrooms, and family dinners. Tell me which one hit different. Drop it in the comments. Subscribe, ring the bell, and come back next week. The The Bible has more buried than anyone told you.